think one of my favorite things to do is to pick a new TBR every month. They're always just so ripe with possibilities and so many amazing things that I can put on my list to read for that month, and February's TBR is no exception. I am so excited for everything I plan to read there. I am Rose, I am at home, and I have a list of 12 books for me to read over the next month, depending on what mood I'm in. I don't do traditional like TBR games that a lot of booktubers do. Instead, I pick what I call a mood read TBR. So I pick things based on various moods I might be in. And there's no punishments if I don't get to them. In general, on an average month, I get to about half. On a great month, I get more. On a really busy month, I get less. But the goal of this isn't to punish or reward. It is to take the 270 things that I have on my shelves that I have not yet read and compile it down to a small group so that I'm not stuck staring at my shelves with analysis paralysis, and I can just pick, I'm in a happy mood, I'm in a sad mood, ooh, I'm so excited to read this, ooh, I really want to read this again. So it narrows that down for me and makes picking books a snap. So if you want to follow along, I'm going to give you what my prompts are for my mood read TBR and tell you what I picked. So with no further ado, let's get this thing underway. My first category is that I am so happy to read this. It can be a happy book, it can be a comedy or something like that, or it can just be something that you are super happy and excited to read this month. And for me, my pick is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I picked this up a few months ago and I was so excited to get to it. If you remember, there was a series that came out, I believe on Netflix. I have Netflix and Hulu, so I get them confused as to what it's on, but I believe it's on Netflix. The trailer looked amazing, and I immediately, after seeing the trailer the first time, went and ordered this, and so I have been waiting impatiently, trying to find a time that I can fit it on my TBR, and I feel like this is the time. So let me tell you what it's about. In present-day California, Eleanor Bennett's death leaves behind a puzzling inheritance for her two children, Byron and Benny, a traditional Caribbean black cake made from a family recipe with a long history, and a voice recording. In her message, Eleanor shares a tumultuous story about a headstrong young swimmer who escapes her island home under suspicion of murder. The heartbreaking tale Eleanor unfolds, the secrets she still holds back, and the mystery of a long-lost child challenge everything the siblings thought they knew about their lineage and themselves. Can Byron and Benny reclaim their once close relationship, piece together Eleanor's true history, and fulfill her final request to share the black cake when the time is right? Will their mother's revelations bring them back together or leave them feeling more lost than ever? Charmaine Wilkerson's debut novel is a story of how the inheritance of betrayals, secrets, memories, and even names can shape relationships and history. Deeply evocative and beautifully written, Black Cake is an extraordinary journey through the lives of a family changed forever by the choices of its matriarch. Does that not sound amazing? I am so excited for this, and I am over the moon, hoping that I really do get to it in February. So my next category is I want to think. I am not someone who reads a lot of nonfiction. It's just not something I'm drawn to. I feel like fiction is truthier than nonfiction, generally speaking. But I do have this category here, and there are some things that call to me, and that includes the next book, and that is Ta-Nehisi Coates, Between the World and Me. I've had this for a while. I've been wanting to pick it up, and so I feel like this is a really good time. It's not very long. It's tiny, look, it's like head-sized. And so let me tell you what it's about. In a profound work that pivots from the biggest questions about American history and ideals to the most intimate concerns of a father for his son, Ta-Nehisi Coates offers a powerful new framework for understanding our nation's history and current crisis. Americans have built an empire on the idea of race, a falsehood that damages us all but falls most heavily on the bodies of black women and men, bodies exploited through slavery and segregation, and today threatened, locked up, and murdered out of all proportion. What is it like to inhabit a black body and find a way to live within it? And how can we all honestly reckon with this fraught history and free ourselves from its burden? Between the World and Me is Ta-Nehisi Coates' attempt to answer these questions in a letter to his adolescent son. Coates shares the story of his awakening to the truth about his place in the world through a series of revelatory experiences, from Howard University to Civil War battlefields, from the South Side of Chicago to Paris, from his childhood home to the living rooms of mothers whose children's lives were taken as American plunder. Beautifully woven from personal narrative, reimagined history, and fresh, emotionally charged repartee, Between the World and Me clearly illuminates the past, bracingly confronts our present, and offers a transcendent vision for a way forward. Doesn't that just sound amazing? And I know it's heavy. I know it's going to be heavy, but I think this is a good time for it. And again, it's short, so hopefully I will be able to get to this month, and I'm really looking forward to it. The next category is I Want a Good Scare. And this book, I think this is the third time it's been on TBR. It might be more than that. I keep putting it on there and I keep not getting to it, but hopefully this is the month. And so it is Lone Woman by Victor LaValle. And I got this from Book of the Month. I had it in the October TBR and I didn't quite get there. And so hopefully this month, let me tell you what it's about because it sounds amazing. Adelaide Henry carries an enormous steamer trunk with her wherever she goes. It's locked at all times because when the trunk opens, people around Adelaide start to disappear. The year is 1915 and Adelaide is in trouble. Her secret sin killed her parents, forcing her to flee California in a hellfire rush and make her way to Montana as a homesteader. Dragging the trunk with her at every stop, she will become one of the lone women, taking advantage of the government's offer of free land for those who can tame it. Except that Adelaide isn't alone. And the secret she's tried so desperately to lock away might be the only thing that will help her survive the harsh territory. Crafted by a modern master of magical suspense, Lone Women blends shimmering prose, an unforgettable cast of adventurers who find horror and sisterhood in a brutal landscape, and a portrait of early 20th century America like you've never seen. And at its heart is the gripping story of a woman desperate to bury her past or redeem it. I don't read a lot of horror. My horror shelf is literally just one shelf. I don't have a whole bookcase for it like I do some of my other categories, but this still sounds amazing, and it sounds like it's a lot of story with some scary elements, which if I'm gonna read horror, that's what I like. And so I'm super, super excited to get to this month. The next category is I Want Twists and Turns. So this is where mysteries, domestic thrillers, suspense, that kind of thing, the stuff that keeps you on your toes. So I am so excited for this book. I have read the first one. It is a series. Mystery series tend to have that same detective character, but they have new cases and new things that happen. So it's not something that can't be read out of order if this sounds good to you, but I can tell you the first one is chef's kiss amazing. But this one is the second one, and it is Stacey Abrams' Rogue Justice. There's that cover. The first one was so good. So I will tell you about this one. Okay, Supreme Court Clerk Avery Keene is back, trying to get her feet on solid ground after unraveling an international conspiracy in While Justice Sleeps. So that's the only thing it's going to mention about that book. It was so good. If you haven't read it, go get it. But as the sparks of congressional hearings and political skirmishes swirl around her, Avery is approached at a legal conference by Preston Davies, an unassuming fellow law clerk to a federal judge in Idaho. Davies believes his boss, Judge Francesco Whitner, is being blackmailed in the days before she died. Desperate to understand what happened, he gives Avery a file, a burner phone, and a fearful warning that there are highly dangerous people involved. A shocking murder leads Avery to a list of names, all federal judges, and alarmingly all judges on the FISA Court, the United States Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, also known as America's Secret Court. It is this body that grants permission to the government to wiretap Americans or spy on corporations suspected of terrorism. As Avery digs deeper, she begins to see a frightening pattern, and she worries that something far more sinister may be unfolding inside the nation's third branch of government. With lives at stake, Avery must race the clock and an unexpected enemy to find the answer. Drawing from today's headlines and weaving in her unique insider perspective, Stacey Abrams combines twisting plot lines, wry wit, and clever puzzles to create another immensely entertaining suspense novel. Does that not sound amazing? I love this type of book. I love the way Stacey Abrams writes. I love this character. I'm so glad that she's back for more, and I cannot wait. The next category is I want a good cry. So it's something that you feel like is probably going to be a tearjerker, something that's going to be heavy at least, something that's not going to be light and fluffy, the opposite. And for that, this month I have selected Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. It is such an orange cover, but look, it gets glare really easy, but it's really cool. Okay. Let me tell you what it's about. Kiara and her brother Marcus are scraping by in an East Oakland apartment complex optimistically called the Regal High. Both have dropped out of school, their families fractured by death and prison. But while Marcus clings to his dream of rap stardom, Kiara hunts for work to pay their rent, which has more than doubled, and to keep the 9-year-old boy next door, abandoned by his mother, safe and fed. One night, what begins as a drunken misunderstanding with a stranger turns into the job Kiara never imagined wanting, but now desperately needs: nightcrawling. Her world breaks open even further when her name surfaces in an investigation that exposes her as a key witness in a massive scandal within the Oakland Police Department. Rich with raw beauty, electrifying intensity, and piercing vulnerability, Nightcrawling marks the stunning arrival of a voice unlike any we have heard before. So I'm not sure about crying, but it definitely sounds super heavy. It sounds like when I'm in the mood for something that's heavy hitting, this is gonna be the thing that is just gonna be up my alley, and I can't wait to get to read it. The next category is I want an escape. This is the place for fantasy, sci-fi, things that take you out of this world, and how could I not? I hopefully am finally getting to The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I love her writing. So this is based on a short story in her collection, How Long Till Black Future Month, and I loved that story, so as soon as I heard that there was going to be a full series based on it, I grabbed it, and it has been on the shelf for a hot minute. So hopefully I get to it this month. Let me tell you what this is about because it sounds amazing. In Manhattan, a young grad student gets off the train and realizes he doesn't remember who he is, where he's from, or even his own name. But he can sense the beating heart of the city, see its history, and feel its power. In the Bronx, a Lenape gallery director discovers a strange graffiti scattered throughout the city, so beautiful and powerful, it's as if the paint is literally calling to her. In Brooklyn, a politician and mother finds she can hear the songs of her city, pulsing to the beat of her Louis Vuitton heels. And they're not the only ones. Every great city has a soul. Some are ancient as myths, and others are as new and destructive as children. New York City? She's got 6. It just sounds amazing. It's very, like, the description doesn't give me a lot of plot points, but that makes it even better because I can dive in and I don't know what's coming, and I think it's going to be awesome. And I apologize for the lighting because the sun keeps coming in and out, but this one I cannot wait for, and I really want to get to it. There is another thing in here that I'm not sure I'd be able to get to this and that in the same month. We'll talk about it in just a minute, but I really do hope I get to this one this month. The next category is I want a challenge. So maybe that's a super long book that you find challenging, or maybe it's an author whose writing you find challenging, or maybe it's an author you're just intimidated by. I selected this one because I know the author's writing can be difficult. It's not super simple, fast, simple sentences that just take you flying through. It requires a mental investment and mental work on your part, but it's so worth it. It is so worth it. So it is James McBride's The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I read his Deacon King Kong and loved it, but like I said, it wasn't something that I could read and have music playing or have like a reality show in the background. Like, it required all of my attention. It made demands of me, just like I do of the things that I read, and totally worth it in the end. You all know, I sometimes will get up here and talk about like, oh, I read this a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't tell you anything about it. I read that years ago. I can give you the full plot line. Like, it has stuck with me because of the way the writing works and the way his writing works. And I am expecting this to be the same, and I cannot wait. Okay, let me tell you what it's about. In 1972, when workers in Pottstown, Pennsylvania were digging the foundations for a new housing development, the last thing they expected to uncover was a human skeleton. Who the skeleton was and how it got buried there were just 2 of the long-held secrets that have been kept for decades by the residents of Chicken Hill, the dilapidated neighborhood where immigrant Jews and African Americans lived side by side, sharing ambitions and sorrows. Chicken Hill was where Moshe and Chona Ludlow lived when Chona ran the Heaven and Earth grocery store, which served the neighborhood's quirky collection of blacks and European immigrants, helped by her husband Moshe, a Romanian-born theater owner who integrated the town's first dance hall. When the state came looking for a deaf black child, claiming the boy needed to be institutionalized, Chicken Hill's residents, roused by Chona's kindness and the courage of a local black worker named Nate Timblin, banded together to keep the boy safe. As the novel unfolds, it becomes clear how much the people of Chicken Hill have to struggle to survive at the margins of white Christian America, and how damaging bigotry, hypocrisy, and deceit can be to a community. When the truth is revealed about the skeleton, the boy, and the part of the town's establishment played in both, McBride shows that it is love and community, heaven and earth, that ultimately sustain us. Bringing his masterful storytelling skills and his deep faith in humanity to the Heaven and Earth grocery store, James McBride has written a novel as compassionate as Deacon King Kong and as inventive as the good Lord Bird. I think this is going to be amazing. I know I'm going to love it. I really hope I get to it this month, and I just cannot wait to be able to read this one. The next category is I want a seasonal read. So if it's Christmas, you can put something Christmassy there. In summer, you can put a beach read. This month, if you did not know, it is Black History Month in February. And so for my seasonal read, I picked Mame by Jessica George. Look at that cover. That is so pretty. I love that cover. That's just lovely. Okay, let me tell you what it's about. It's fair to say that Maddie's life in London is far from rewarding. With a mother who spends most of her time in Ghana, yet still somehow manages to be overbearing, Maddie is the primary caretaker for her father, who suffers from advanced stage Parkinson's. At work, her boss is a nightmare, and Maddie is tired of always being the only black person in every meeting. When her mom returns from her latest trip to Ghana, Maddie leaps at the chance to get out of her family home and finally start living. A self-acknowledged late bloomer, she's ready to experience some important firsts. She finds a flat share, says yes to after-work drinks, pushes for more recognition in her career, and throws herself into the bewildering world of internet dating. But it's not long before tragedy strikes, forcing Maddie to face the true nature of her unconventional family and the perils and rewards of putting her heart on the line. Smart, funny, and deeply affecting, Mame deals with the themes of our time with humor and poignancy, from familial duty and racism to female pleasure and the complexities of love and the life-saving power of friendship. Most important, it explores what it feels like to be torn between two homes and cultures, and it celebrates finally being able to find where you belong. Doesn't that sound amazing? Like a little bit of love, a little bit of Valentine's, but also Black History Month, and I think it's gonna be great, and I'm gonna love it. The next category is I've wanted to read this for a while. So it's something that's been on your shelves for a long time, something that's been in your TBR and keeps kind of getting pushed back. And for me, this month, it is Homegoing by Gyasi. I've read Transcendent Kingdom, which actually was written after this, and loved it, but I just haven't gotten to this one yet, so I'm super excited to get there. It came out in, I believe, 2016. I've had it since probably 17 or 18, since it came out in paperback, and so I cannot wait. Let me tell you what it's about. Ghana, 18th century. Two half-sisters are born into different villages, each unaware of the other. One will marry an Englishman and lead a life of comfort in the palatial rooms of the Cape Coast Castle. The other will be captured in a raid on her village, imprisoned in the very same castle, and sold into slavery. Homegoing follows the parallel paths of these sisters and their descendants through 8 generations, from the Gold Coast to the plantations of Mississippi, from the American Civil War to Jazz Age Harlem. Gyasi's extraordinary novel illuminates slavery's troubled legacy both for those who were taken and those who stayed, and shows how the memory of captivity has been inscribed on the soul of our nation. Doesn't that sound amazing? I love generational stories. It's really short to get us through 8 generations, so I know she's an amazing writer, but I'm super curious and really want to know how she's gonna get it done, because I know she will. So I really hope that I get to this month, because I am so here for it. The next category is I want to reread that. And this is for something you've read before that you'd like to reread. For me, I tend to put things that are in series here that maybe I read the first one and intended to keep going with the series, but somehow didn't get to it in time to still remember enough. And so that's where that is. And sometimes it's just something I really loved and can't wait to get to. So this time it is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is why I said I don't think I can do the 5th season and The City We Became in the same month. First off, length is a thing, and I don't want to, because it's the same writer, the writing might be similar enough that my brain might want to put the plot lines together, and I don't want that to happen. So the plan is one or the other, but I really want to reread this because I have not finished reading the series, and I very much loved this and want to know what happens next. So let me tell you what happens in this one. Okay, so there's not a ton of info, but this is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that bolts out the sun. It starts with death, and a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal, and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon, and there is no mercy. N.K. Jemisin can write a backflap like her writing is amazing, and also the teasers for the book, it never gives away too much. It's just enough to make you go, oh, I want to go there. I want to experience that. I absolutely love this. It is a thinking fantasy. It's not YA. It's not super light and all of that you can kind of breeze through. It's another one that requires an investment from you, but so worth it. So worth it. But I know I need to reread it to get to the next one because I don't want to have anything that I don't understand. So I don't know which one I'd rather. They're both on here because I want to read the both, and we'll see when the time comes which one I end up reading. The next category is, ooh, shiny. It's something you just picked up, you just went and bought, and it has leaped to the front of the TBR, and that for me, I told you in the haul video, Erasure by Percival Everett. This is the book that the film American Fiction is based on, and if you haven't seen that movie, go see it. It's so good. It is absolutely one of my top films that I've seen in a while. I am so excited for this. Okay. Thelonious Monk Ellison's writing career has bottomed out. His latest manuscript has been rejected by 17 publishers, which stings all the more because his previous novels have been critically acclaimed. He seethes on the sidelines of the literary establishment as he watches the meteoric success of Wheeze Lives in the Ghetto, a first novel by a woman who once visited some relatives in Harlem for a couple of days. Meanwhile, Monk struggles with real family tragedies. His aged mother is fast succumbing to Alzheimer's, and he still grapples with the reverberations of his father's suicide 7 years before. In his rage and despair, Monk dashes off a novel meant to be an indictment of Juanita Mae Jenkins' bestseller. He doesn't intend for My Pathology to be published, let alone taken seriously, but it is. Under the pseudonym Stag R. Lee, and soon it becomes the next big thing. How Monk deals with the personal and professional fallout galvanizes this audacious, hysterical, and quietly devastating novel. That is actually a really good description of the film as well. It seems like they actually honored the book in the movie, and it followed right along, and so I am so excited to jump back into that world and spend more time with those characters that I absolutely expect this one will probably make it into the red pile this month. And the last category is, I have to read this. This is where things for book club goes, or things that you have agreed to buddy read with a friend. Those kinds of things that you really need to get read above anything that's a personal choice. And my book club, well, it's not mine, but the book club that I attend at my local independent bookstore is back for February. And so the book that I absolutely have to read is The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. My favorite kind of horror book of all time is The Sundown Motel. It is, I'm thinking the writing style is obviously going to be the same, but in The Sundown Motel, it's a lot mystery with a little bit ghosties, and I suspect we might have more of that. That seems to be Simone St. James' MO, and I can handle, like I said, I can handle horror things that are heavy on something else, and the horror is just kind of added into the story, and so I think I'm going to really enjoy this. So let me tell you what it's about. In 1977, Clear Lake, Oregon was shaken by the Lady Killer murders. Two men, seemingly randomly, were murdered with the same gun, with strange notes left behind. Beth Greer was the perfect suspect, a rich, eccentric 23-year-old woman seen fleeing one of the crime scenes. But she was acquitted, and she returned to the isolation of her mansion. Oregon, 2017. Shay Collins is a receptionist, but by night she runs a true crime website, The Book of Cold Cases, a passion fueled by the attempted abduction she escaped as a child. When she meets Beth by chance, Shay asks her for an interview. To Shay's surprise, Beth says yes. They meet regularly at Beth's mansion, though Shay is never comfortable there. Items move when she's not looking, and she could swear she's seen a girl outside the window. The allure of learning the truth about the case from the smart, charming Beth is too much to resist. But even as they grow closer, Shay senses something isn't right. Is she making friends with a manipulative murderer, or are there other dangers lurking in the darkness of the Greer house? Doesn't that sound cool? So yes, this is going first. I'm finishing my last thing that I got to in January, and you want to see me recap those books because January was an amazing reading month. I loved everything that I read, and so I'm gonna have some really good recommendations for you if you are interested in those. So please go ahead and subscribe and hit that notifications bell so that you find out as soon as that video pops up, and then I get to these ones. And I think February is going to be just as good, if not even better than January. And I can't wait to get to this pile of books. So in the meantime, I hope that you have an absolutely amazing week and that you get to read some really amazing books. Bye, y'all.